1200 BC. The Hittite Empire and the Egyptian pharaoh, Ramses II, fought a devastating battle at Kadesh for the Amur region and made peace. The Amorites, who worshipped the weather god from Babylon, descendants of Akkad, and sun worshippers, gained their independence. But the region of Amuru and Kadesh were completely destroyed, and those expelled from Babylon to Canaan were left in ruins. Meanwhile, on the west coast of Asia Minor, Spartans, Ithacians, Athenians, even the drunken Germanic Sicyones, Thracians from northeast Greece came and also brought the Scythians from the deep north. The Greeks besieged Troy. Thousands of them stand in front of the walls. 5 meters high. But since the Greeks themselves had no walls and never needed them, because with the phalanx formation they simply pushed out any enemy who got into a Greek city with their pointed sticks. Stand there. For 10 years. Before the walls of Troy. 3 to 5 meters high. The Trojans were cowardly and decadent. They didn't want to fight with the dirty Greeks. But the Greeks had Odysseus with them. The cunning Ithaca initially did not want to go to Troy. And when the Greeks attacked the coast, he plundered all the islands and retreated to the southeast. He didn't want to be part of the attack on Troy and thought, as clever as he was, that he could simply avoid the battle area around Troy to the east. The cunning Odysseus just needed a bodyguard. Because the best, of course. So he promised his friend Achilles fame and honor beyond his imagination. So Odysseus pointed the direction east, following the nose, in order to circumnavigate Troy. And so began the adventures of Odysseus and Achilles. They first disembarked in the Tarhintasa area, where the god of lightning and thunder, the god of arrows and chariots, was worshipped. There, Odysseus found some funny herbs and plants and handed them out for smoking, like the beaten-up, well-armed local farmers do. Odysseus wanted to hide there until everything was over and promised his friend Achilles a temple of the gods full of fame and honor. Achilles found a temple of the gods. Despite Odysseus' advice not to visit the ancient temple of the gods, Achilles visited the ancient temple of the gods. There he encountered horrors beyond his imagination on his path to fame and honor. On his way to Olympus, wild beasts came out of nowhere, snapping and barking, with huge deformed heads, carcasses, and fur between their teeth. Cerberus came from hell, a huge dog. Odysseus later said, "It shattered into 100 pieces. Into 100 small deformed beasts that bite your leg and grab your spear." Accompanied by dwarf dog people who sleep and socialize with the beast, Achilles showed no mercy and killed the monster with just one blow. Then you met the men of the Amazons. You were chased away by their wives because of your cowardice. They shot at their enemies with bows and were masters at it. The Greeks have never seen anything like this. As you approached the enemy, he just ran away, like a coward. A trick of the god of cunning. The Greeks were taken aback and slowly approached the cowards until they had used up all their arrows. Now the cowards decided to fight, but quickly ran away to their wives. Achilles continued undeterred on the path to the temple of the old gods. But even Odysseus couldn't have guessed what came next after Achilles couldn't be persuaded to return. Did he come across centaurs? Horse people. Half horse, half human. With huge cocks and spears. They threw spears and feces at their brave comrades. Then they attacked head-on. Achilles slaughtered them all and advanced. He was on the verge of achieving the glory of the gods. Just a little bit more. The supplies were replenished by Odysseus on horseback. Achilles continued towards the temple complex and found the Minotaur. A mani's fascination of pure madness and violence. He had wheels for legs and had to guard a glorious treasure, divine power, and gold. The Minotaur came with lightning and thunder and snapped. Achilles and his brave comrade stood shoulder to shoulder. The Minotaur shattered. Achilles found his way to Olympus. Gold. Stole the magical powers of ancient mystical Babylonian gods and burned down the temple of the thunder god. Achilles wanted to know from Odysseus where there was more fame and gold to be had. So Odysseus wanted to bring Achilles back to the northwest, to Troy, as quickly as possible. But the wind carried you east, to Hades. Achilles sacked more temples and defeated numerous monsters from the underworld. For a whole year, across Syria and Canaan, all the way to Egypt. And from there he took advantage of the wind again and sailed north to Troy. With his faithful friend Odysseus, who diligently wrote everything down. On their journey they met small, brown, hairy, robust dwarfs from the mountains. Those who smelt iron and hoard gold, which communicate with demonic mythical creatures from the underworld. Evil creatures, as well as the wild horse people who live in the forest. And to the one-eyed men from Canaan, Cyclopes, who each lost an eye because of an arrow. It must have been a powerful arrow. Also on the oil eyes, the painted desert dwarves who melt gold and subdue the black devils. When you finally arrived in Troy after a year, you found that the Greeks had not yet conquered the city. Because the Trojans had walls and the Greeks had none. The siege lasted 10 years. The Greeks demanded that the Trojans come out. But they didn't want to. So the Greeks stood before Troy for 10 years with their sharp sticks. There have been many epic and legendary raids along the coast. In western Anatolia there were many temples to plunder. The Greeks ate everything. Entire areas and regions. And drank the rivers empty. The drunken Thracians from northeast Greece crossed the border into Anatolia via the land connection near Byzantium and penetrated further northeast to Ithaca. They brought the Scythians with them. They passed the endless hills of the Caspian's horse people and made friends with them. A Thracian tribe that lived on the river Nestos and around Lake Vistanida in the neighborhood of the Sicines and Sapians. According to ancient Greek legend, they were ruled by King Diomedes, whose man-eating horses were stolen by Heracles. The Greeks sent 30 to 50,000 warriors to Asia Minor and besieged Troy for 10 years. They ate it all, then they ate the rest, then they ate all the rest, then they ate their ships, then, before they ate each other, Odysseus had an idea. A rescue plan. For all. From the remaining wood that they hadn't eaten yet, Odysseus made a huge wooden horse and hid in it. The Greeks hid behind the remaining bushes and bushes in the desert-like barren surroundings and waited. You had to make sure you didn't eat all the bushes so your cover wouldn't be blown. They waited, dying of thirst and starving, wrapped only in rags, behind stones and bushes in a corroded, barren, desert landscape. After the Trojans hadn't seen anything from the Greeks for a long time, they came out and found the wooden horse and a bunch of starving Greeks. They were gone. The horse, a peace offering. Too ugly and pathetic not to take with me. The victory over the Greeks. The trophy. Odysseus sneaked out of his horse at night and opened the gates of Troy. Finally it was done and Troy was burned to the ground. And everything else. On his way back to Greece, unfortunately without his friend Achilles, Odysseus was once again caught in false winds and was confused on the high seas for several decades. Meanwhile in Egypt, Jerusalem, a man stares into the fire. His name is Moses. God speaks to him through a burning bush. He tells everyone what the Egyptian pharaoh is doing and that he is the only true God. Moses has a plan. He wants to help his new friend and builds a network of biblical agents. and every palace from here to Ithaca, ready to blow everything up. He unleashes the biblical plagues on Pharaoh, Ramses, and all of Egypt. No, even about the world. Earthquakes shake entire regions as Moses leads his people from Egypt to the Promised Land. For 100 years. It affects several cities and entire regions and continents. Plagues shake the known world. Only the Greeks ate their way through the country like locusts. Now ebb and flow, hunger droughts, disease, cockroaches, and earthquakes. When the emaciated Greeks return to Greece after 10 years of war, find your homes in ruins, except the palaces and their kings. The Greeks have seen walls and gold in Asia Minor, as well as decadent, cowardly Trojans, and are beginning to question themselves. What kings and palaces are good for if the kings have neither walls to protect nor gold to repair? So they burned down the remaining palaces, high with the huts, low with the palaces. The protest spread like wildfire across the country, and there were numerous palace protests. After a miserable campaign, everything destroyed, cursed by the gods. The best dead or lost. The wrath of the gods fell upon you, the entire Olympus. For their failure, their disgrace in the field. Forever. But not with the Greeks. For their part, the Greeks cursed the gods and swore bitter revenge against each and every one of them. They jumped into their boats and paddled east again, to Little Asia, across the Aegean Sea, full of myths and legends, its waves full of adventure, looking for the gods to kill them all, and to take revenge. So the Philistines came. When the Hutti heard this, the loose military alliance of the Anatolians tore apart and collapsed. The old core of Tarhuntassa, Kizzuwatna, and Isowa remained. The north and west in Anatolia, Asia Minor, was completely decimated and flee. Except Lucca. The remaining rulers of the Hutti declared themselves autonomous and broke away from the former great empire of the Hutti, like the more Canaan empire of the island of Alassija, today's Cyprus. Over time, the Hutti disappeared completely due to further internal disputes. More and more tribes split off and declared themselves autonomous. The plundering pirates and Greeks even reached Egypt. The Philistines came. Ramses III, protected by warding off the 9 bows. The foreign countries all separated from their islands together. They moved away and the countries were scattered all at once in the hustle and bustle of battle. No country stood before their armies. From Adi, Kadi, Carchemish, Arzawa, and Alasia onwards were now uprooted in one fell swoop. A camp was set up at a location inside Amuru. They destroyed his people and his land as if it had never existed. Now, with the flame prepared before them, they advanced against Egypt, their fortress.